Today's episode of the Life of Phys Podcast is brought to you by Very Good Presets. All photographers know how saturated and underwhelming the preset market can be. You see some styles you like, you buy that pack of 20 presets, and when you put them on your photo, none of them look like what you expected. Very Good Presets has a different approach to color grading. Rather than a pack of presets, they offer them one at a time with modifiers to help refine that preset to your liking. Each preset has months of focus and calibration to make sure you get an incredible end result. Their film emulations have been used by major brands and artists such as country superstar Luke Combs. Additionally, a growing community of users rally around the brand and its developers to inspire and encourage one another. Very Good Presets strives to be an industry leader in a culture of generosity, giving regularly to organizations that help underserved communities have access to cameras, film, and photography equipment. My personal favorite preset is 1956, but with the recent release of the Portra 800, that may change soon. Check out Very Good Presets at verygoodpresets.com and try one or more of their presets using our discount code, Life of Phys. Welcome to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. On this episode, I have Ansley Stewart. Ansley is a Houston, Texas-based photographer who is drawn to the lonely places in an attempt to grab images of sight fighting the battle against time. Being surrounded by endless miles of concrete, smog, and sound, the first time he stood on the face of a cliff overlooking the minuscule river far down in the valley, his perspectives shifted. Ansley and I touched on many topics in this part 1 of 2 series. Part 2 will go live August 11th, 2024 at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now let's hear a word from our podcast partner and get to the show. The Life of Phys Podcast is lit by Hobolight. Hobolight is on a mission to empower creators to elevate their creativity with lighting kits made to last and built to inspire. These lights are bold, beautiful, and powerful because Hobolight believes that your lights deserve to be seen. To learn more, follow them on Instagram at HOBOLITE.
Hi, I am Ansley Stewart. I live in Houston, Texas. I'm boring and I like to take pretty pictures.
I would say you're not boring because our conversation before this episode started has been absolutely spectacular. We've talked everything about dogs that we loved and missed. We've talked about BMX. We've talked about the fact that I know some people that you looked up to growing up. And I would say your pictures they are amazing. They are pretty. But I think spectacular for a lot of them is the word that we want to use. I noticed too that you shoot a lot of film.
Now?
A lot of film.
As of December. I mean,
really?
Yeah, no. I legitimately started in December. It was, so I guess we're in April. Yeah, we're in April. So a few months. Yeah, I don't know. I got a bug up my ass. I'm one of those people that like deconstructing things, right? And I could only see so many Portra 400 recipes before going, okay, I need to know what that actually looks like. Because the digital version, like, you see one Portra 400, rendition on Instagram next to another Portra 400 rendition on Instagram, and you kind of go like, but it's a film stock. Like, there's a standard to this. Where is it getting pushed and pulled from, right? And I guess I wanted to I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see what film was all about and kind of understand the lore behind it and learn a new skill that I felt like would complement my eye for looking at scenes, because I will tell you that whole thing about, oh, film slows you down. It does this. It does not slow me down. I don't agree with that. I approach film very much. Film makes me be more intentional, and it makes me think about what I want to accomplish on the end goal, and then set up the dominoes in a row, kind of set up the Rube Goldberg machine, essentially. And then when I'm on site, I just execute and run through shit, So I have shot probably objectively a lot of film for somebody who just started in December over since then. I think I've shot 100 rolls or something at this point. Um, so it hasn't slowed me down, but it's definitely made me think about what I'm doing on the front end more than digital ever did. Um, I think about the two mediums differently. Digital is data acquisition. Like film is taking a photo because you are chemically changing an emulsion. You're capturing those little photons in a jelly, right? Uh, and neither one is good or bad. Uh, I think that they're equally like valid and but there's definitely something about film, the tangible nature of it, that I think is neat to think about it outlasting a person and outlasting a vision. Man, because especially nowadays, like everything is so fleeting, you know? Yeah, I don't know. So yes, I've shot a lot of film, but I have not been shooting film long. But as a as an aside to that, as of this past week, I actually have more film cameras than I do digital cameras, and that's not something that I would have ever had on a bingo card for myself. Like 2024 is just coming in just real hot. not not that I didn't buy anything. I just sold off stuff. So I've got two film cameras and a single digital at this point for photography anyways, but and who knows, in a year from now that may change. Like I can be fickle in that manner, but it's been fun learning it, you know. Um yeah, I don't know. Learning something new is always badass. You know what I mean?
Oh, I do. I've got this whole podcast thing that's all new. And, it's a learning curve. Like I said, I'm learning all sorts of new editing techniques every single time I hop on an episode to get it ready. Do you find, so when you shoot film, you're finding like, it's definitely more research to know where you're going, what possibly you could shoot than it is with the digital camera?
Yeah, I'm definitely more flippant about digital stuff. Like, I mean, I guess I at this point the prevailing theme, I think, through the past couple of years since I've been taking this part of photography very seriously is that desert, mountainous, granular sort of scene. So there's definitely like experience there from shooting digital that translated over to understanding what did I feel like I was missing in the digital shot that I think that I can capture with film. To answer your question more succinctly, I will research the right stock that I think is going to get me there. But I'm in such kind of the fetal stage of this right now, right? That I'm trying to figure out kind of all the nuances. Like even to the extent of I've only had film scanned by three different labs now, and boy, there's a more out there. Uh, so I think that's going to be the next kind of like frontier for me now that I've gotten like negatives back and stuff. Like I'm going to start sending out specific roles to specific labs to see kind of like what do they do? How does this come back? What are the variances between this? Like, do I like this lab better for 120 versus this lab for slide film? Right? Like, I think those little I'm going to bring this up a whole lot because my continuous theme is music. I was always really specific about my guitar tone and how I crafted it and what it sounded like and how the guitar was built and who built the guitar and all kinds of stuff. And that character trait is not different in photography. And now with film, because so much of the processing part is subjective to the lab and the person in the lab that day, that until I get to the point where I've amassed a lottery ticket and can get my own Noritsu. uh, I think there's going to be that learning process is also fun. But yeah, I right now, like my big thing is slide film. I heard so much lore about slide film and how difficult it was and stuff that it made me want to figure it out. Like, you know what I mean? And boy, it's rewarding. That shit is just cool. Like, I had a conversation on Instagram with someone recently. I was like, I'm kind of thinking about kind of want an 8x10. I'm like, what? But there's this thing in my brain right now where I'm like, how badass would it be to have a book that I can have, right? And assemble a book that is only 8x10 slide film negatives. That's it. Not
That'd
prints,
be so cool. Yeah.
actual, just this is an archive book, and look through it, like include, like have a light table that's like glued to the book or something. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. There's something really neat about that tangible thing that is, again, that is so fleeting nowadays. Like one of the common themes that I keep on rolling over in my head is if social media went away tomorrow, like how many people would still create? Right? When I became a musician, when I decided that I was going to do it, music was always in my head, right? Along with imagery. And I played guitar for a really long time. I can't play anymore because my arm is jacked up now. Like I played too aggressively with the thrash metal for too long and it jacked up my elbow. So pain is there, but the music has never turned off. Right? Like, and legitimately the whole thing behind photography and making images, taking images, whatever you want to call it. I just wonder, are we doing this because of validation, because of this outside stimuli? Or is this like, are you just trying to, like, for me, I just wanted to, when I heard something or when I saw something more recently, I wanted to make it real, right? In a tangible thing. And there's a ton of songs and riffs and ideas and stuff that nobody would ever hear besides whoever may have been in the room the day that I cracked it off. But there's several thousand people that would have heard a song that the band that I was in put together and performed and stuff on stage, right? There's people around the world that have the EP that we recorded. Those things are real, right? And they'll be real as long as that physical media still exists. And I just kind of wonder with creatives now, especially with like social media and how I don't want to dice on the line of sounding gatekeepy or whatever, but like, I kind of think it's funny when people do the hot take thing and they're like, oh, you need to post because this algorithmic thing does this and you need to do this or your content sucks. And it's just like, Vivian Meyer would like to have a word.
Right.
Right. Like, and how many more people are out there just they're creating because they have this thing in their head. They don't give a shit about the outside validation. You know what I mean? Right. Like, and it's nice to have social media. It's cool because we're able to make connections like this. Right.
Yep.
But man, like when I stopped playing guitar, the music never stopped.
So I look at my whole life changed when I found a skateboard.
Yes.
1982, walking through an alley. There was one that some parent had just thrown in the garbage can. And like, that was it. I saw it. I may have borrowed it and not brought it back.
Finders keepers.
And had no clue. I just had seen something with a banana board. It was a plastic banana board. And I was like, man, I saw these people riding this thing. I spent the rest of the summer just figuring out how to ride down a hill, crashing, doing all the fun stuff. But to this day, at almost 50 years old, my eyes still see everything like a skateboarder. So when I picked up a camera, it allowed me to have a way to create. So I call it creative continuance. I take the passion I had for skateboarding, and now it transfers into photography.
Yes.
So my goal is long term. I want my imagery, I want my work to be 30 or 40 years from now to still be relevant, to still tell a story in everybody's journey. So I see social media to me as just the places where I get to meet people like you, Dave, the crew of people that have been on my show and who will be on my show in the future, who all have the same kind of theory on what we need to do to build a better community.
Yes. No, I agree. You know what? It's interesting, right? Like when you talk about this long-term, like idea, I guess I don't want to try to get like too far at my butt about it, but what's interesting, I think about anything, right? Like, and I'd like to leave out very specifically the spiny thorns that come with, street photography discussions, and is it right? Is it wrong? Ethically, all that kind of stuff, right? Like just leaving that part out for a fraction of a second. Like I'm not a street photographer. It's not my thing. It's just not my thing. Right. But I think that all of these mediums have value because, again, even everything is always in flux. Right. And if there's one thing that I learned from having the dogs, right, is everything has such a finite timeline. Right. And to us as people, as humans, like we have a finite timeline. It does not seem like that to us. What is that old saying? Like dogs are so perfect that they don't need a long lifespan. Right. Because they live 100 years in 5 or whatever. Like they don't have the trips and falls that people do learning how to be a good person because dogs are just born perfect. Right. They have like perfect little souls inside of them and stuff. But I feel like because everything is such in flux that anything that we do as artists to put our name in that record of time, right, is important to someone, could be important to someone, could be something that someone 100 years from now or 200 years from now or 300 years from now looks back on, like us going through the desert and seeing pictographs. Like I wonder, it's one of those thinky things in my head of like, imagine Instagram was back when pictographs were being made and somebody was like, no, you don't need to draw that. That's not going to get the right engagement. Like how, you know what I mean? Or that theory of like, we have such finite timelines that, and the earth has been around for so long, the universe has been around for so long. It's very possible that there were a ton of us before and all gone, never had a trace because their civilizations got eroded and pushed away and washed away with the dirt. And like, we're sitting around going, man, dinosaur bones, fossils. You have jackasses like, I don't want to get into the flat earther thing, but they're a thorn in my ass. But like, I heard somebody recently go, like the theory behind it was like, oh, well, if there was that many dinosaurs, why don't we see that many? There's only these many fossils. It's like, oh, what in the fuck are you talking about? Like, how many human bones do you ever see, dummy? And you see like, you see humans everywhere. What a dumbass logic. Like humans don't exist because I've never seen a human bone. Shut the fuck
up. I can't even engage with those people, unfortunately. It hurts my head.
like all laughs aside, I think all of these creative mediums that kind of record who we are as human beings and species and stuff, like I think it's really important. The medium is very important, you know? And for ourselves, man, I miss my dogs, right? Like I've got their paw prints and little clay thingy, and I've got their ashes and stuff. But what I have more than that is I've got photos and I've got videos of my dogs, right? And I've been very enthralled. Enthralled's a bad word. I've been very intrigued by this idea. I was listening to a neurologist talk about essentially like how human brains work and how memories work, right? And how faulty our memories are. And one of the reasons why, or I guess a theory of why we tend to remember traumatic experiences more than we do good things like the normal stuff, is essentially that our brains work almost kind of like a ticking time bomb where every time we recall a memory, the way that that memory is processed is it's recreating that link, that neuron, right? And so every time we think about a memory, it makes that neuron just a little bit different. And so the more we remember something, the less we actually remember the reality of it. But traumatic experiences, because we try to hide them so much, can be very visceral because that neuron hasn't been tread over a whole lot, right? And there's something very visceral about, I'm sure you've seen those videos of people with Alzheimer's and dementia that hear a song and all of a sudden they're back,
Mm-hmm.
right? That connection that breaks all of those, breaks all of that stuff down, right? And I kind of feel like all of the creative stuff is very important as a result of that, because photography and imagery and music and poetry and books and art of all kinds and all that kind of stuff, it can bridge that gap where our physical bodies have left, right? And it can bridge that gap and be this like indelible record for a century, right? And the idea that, you know, 1,000 years from now, like we're not going to look like us anymore, we won't speak a language. Like if one of us was able to figure out time travel and we traveled 1,000 years in the future, we wouldn't be able to even communicate with those. We would see those, that being, yeah, they're humans, but to us they would be aliens, and vice versa, because everything evolves so far, right? And it's crazy to think about because we live 70, 80, 90 years, 100 if we're lucky. And it's just such a nothing in the drop, you know, in the bucket or whatever. I think one of the bigger mistakes that we're making kind of as a society is that we're forgetting that. We're chasing something that we created. Like we created money and we created financial structures and all this kind of stuff. And it's like we also created art. Money comes and goes, and but we look back in awe of things like pyramids and pictographs. We look back in awe and wonder about what humans are capable of, leaving out the crazy ancient alien crap. But there's a really specific importance to it, and maybe I'm sure that's a whole different conversation to have. But I think that part of the reason why we feel so unstable and uncentered a lot of the time nowadays, and I think that this is one of those things that plays into mental wellness and mental health, is we become so decentered and uprooted from who we are as people. And then when we say something about it, we're gaslit of oh, well, that's just how society is. Like, don't pronounce a word that way. That's not the way that it is in the dictionary. But it's like, did we make the dictionary or did the dictionary make us? Like, we are the arbiters of what we decide is real and what we decide is legitimate and this, that, and the other. We can always evolve and we can change these things, you know? I think having photography, having arts, having all of those disciplines that really show that kind of visceral underlying side of us can help, good and bad, clearly remind us of who we are and recenter us, if like, and kind of, like community over competition, right? Like it helps center creatives that we're not out there competing against ourselves at our own peril, right? Because at the end of the day, like we compete and we gatekeep and we be jackasses to each other and all this kind of stuff. And the platforms that we're vying for attention on give zero shits about us, because most of us are not like their power user base, right? And they've got us all like slurry, like scrambling in the mud while they give zero fucks. And we're all tearing each other apart for what? For a viral video? Like that shit is fleeting. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's
The social media wormhole with Ansley Stewart.
I was going to say that drive back from Joshua Tree with Dave was a lot of this. It's like, wow, you never talk that much on the internet. It's like, no, because I don't like typing.
I think a lot of the problem lies with instant gratification. Everybody wants it right now. They want that 100 likes. They want that viral video. They want to be famous quick. They don't want to earn it. I grew up in a generation where if you wanted something, you had to earn it. It wasn't just handed to you. I grew up in very traumatic situations, and I'm still here to not only share my story and be open with everybody, but give that platform to everybody that wants to have the opportunity to speak, share their story, share their traumas, share their happiness. And so many people are afraid to just be themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like they have to be these fuckheads that just control every aspect. Post one photo a day at 3:00, you'll get 1 million followers.
Mm-hmm.
But I shot 18 bangers, so why can't I post 18 banger photos? Like I don't give a shit about your algorithm.
You can only have a 10 limit on your carousel.
Right? Damn it.
No, and it's funny too, like, how would I put this that makes sense? One of the things that a couple of years ago, I was really intent on figuring out, at least at the time, like, how are reels working? What's the signaling procedure? Like all that kind of stuff, right? And so I made the mistake of treading down that rabbit hole, and I found a niche that was not photography on my page that after, man, I want to say it was like 14 days or something, I had a reel that went up to almost 4 million views.
Wow.
Dude, it sucked. Like, sucked because I gained, I don't know, like 2,000 followers in like 72 hours. And my phone is like, Instagram gives you 100 notifications at a time or something ridiculous like that. It had like 250,000 likes and like 10,000 comments and all this crazy. And I'm just like, but I want to be cool to everyone. Like, I want to respond to everyone that took time to do this. Like, how do celebrities deal with this? Oh, they get managers to do this. That makes sense. But like, I crippled myself in the meantime, because now all of a sudden I crippled I essentially screwed up all of it, because most of the people that came on were coming on because of, it was a bearded dragon video, right? And they were there for reptiles, and I and I wanted to post photography. So like, as time went on, it killed my engagement because all of these people that had joined immediately just went, oh, he's not posting things about the lizard anymore. Like, so recently I had to go through and like, I finally just removed all of those followers one by one by one. So that's different, right? Because you're only supposed to unfollow as an account 100 per day, right? But there is no limit that I've found, anyways, on how many followers you can remove in a day,
Okay.
right? So I legitimately removed 1,500 followers in the period of like 3 hours, one by one. My finger was tired.
I bet.
I'm when I tell you, but no, I mean, in a serious note, like I think it's one of those things that kind of taught me a lesson that I had learned back when I was playing music, right? And I was playing with the band that I was in. Regionally, at least, we did well. We made it farther than 98% of I'm in a band guys ever would, right? And when it ended, it sucked. But not to like we kind of always joked about it as our Al Bundy moment. Now that we're like older, like, yeah, it was Polk High School, like you remember that show? He like did this and did that. But like we mentioned before, right? Like the music never stopped. And it taught me these very valuable lessons about what did I remember and what did I enjoy about being in a band and performing the most. And to be 100% honest with you, like I don't remember the shows. Like I don't remember, especially when you're on big stages, you only see like maybe 2 or 3 rows of people back because of the lights and stuff, right? What I remember the most about those times were loading up the band trailer and rehearsals. And we on the back porch of my house, we had this old rickety table, like big round thing. We always, ooh, nights at the round table, like that kind of thing. That's where we'd have band discussions, right? I remember that a lot. I remember when we would like go on tour with bands that were from different parts of the country, and we'd all home base at my place and have these big blowout ass barbecues at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? And then we'd get up at 5 because we had a 12-hour drive the next day to get to another city. I remember that, right? Like this I think that's what fueled this sort of like real sporadic thing with Dave and Lucas, where it was just like, oh, this is what it was like back then. Like I need to be spontaneous. Like I just need to grab this now because we have only so much time. And like, do I really have the money for this right now? Not really, but I can make more money. I can't make this opportunity come up again. Right.
100%.
And like you kind of mentioned, you had that moment in time, that like pivotal thing. And I remember we played a show. We did this like little regional tour with a couple of bands from California that came in. They basically toured halfway across the country, came to Houston, and then we did like a regional tour, Louisiana, Texas, like Oklahoma, that kind of thing. And we all just stayed at my house. And on the last night, it was a Sunday night, and we played in Fort Worth at this little like nothing bar, right? And it was cold as shit outside, and like our fingers were freezing, like unloading gear and all that kind of stuff. And legitimately, like when I say that there was nobody there, like it was definitely like the bands playing for the bands, right? But after we were done, we still rocked out. Like we were there with our friends. You know what I mean? And it was almost a little bit kind of comforting to be there with your friends because there was no expectations. Like, dude, like we'd been together, like all of us in this big group of sweaty jackass dudes had been together for 4 or 5 days at this point. It almost kind of reminded me of what I used to see on the Road Fools tapes of like Sandy Carson just like farting everywhere and stinking out the Road Fools bus, right? Like that sort of thing. But it was funny because we did this tour, and it was this last night, and there was nobody there, and seemingly it was by all metrics, it should have been a bust, right? After we were done, all of us, because I'm pretty sure we played last, but it may have been Jameson that played last. I can't remember at this point. Slept a lot. But we were all outside and we're loading up our trailers, right? And one of the dudes that worked at the bar came outside, and he's like, and this is 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning on on the Monday, essentially, right? And goes, "Hey, Vinny wants y'all to come to the club." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "Vinny wants you to come to the strip club." Vinny Paul? Vinny Paul? Yeah, Vinny. Because that bar that we were playing at was this like dive bar that Vinny and Daryl used to hang out a lot at. Like, we just thought that the pictures of Pantera and stuff that were around that were hung up on the walls were just like, oh, it's Fort Worth, it's Pantera, that kind of thing. Not so much, right? That night, we had girlfriends and we had jobs, and we said no. And we did not go to the bar. We did not go to the club. I met Dime when I was like 13 years old, right? And I remember him being really cool to me back then. That's, I think, that pivotal moment. Not when we had a lot of momentum and we were like playing big stages and Clear Channel was giving us shows and stuff. That was that moment. We all made a decision, and none of the guys that were there that night ever went farther in music. Like, we have all stopped being musicians at this point, right? We made a very specific decision that night. Whether it was the wrong one or the right one, who can say? But boy, I remember it. I remember that like butthole pucker moment of like, I thought the strip club like closed at like 2 on Sunday night. It was like, but he owns it. He can keep it open as long as he wants. And it's just like, oh. But if I get fired, like,
Right.
I don't know. Memories, right? Polk High, like Polk High School football shit. But we don't even have pictures of that night, right? So like, back to what we were talking about earlier, like I wonder how accurate my memory of that was. Like, did we really suck that night? I know that it happened, kind of, but man, I wish there were I wish we had photographers. I wish we had like videographers and stuff. But this predates Instagram, right? Like, I'm pretty sure all of us were in our top 8s of our MySpace account when we were running that. Yeah, I don't know. And to further that point, like, so my dad was here's an inside scoop for you. My dad was the drummer for the Joe Perry Project back in the early 80s, right? And I'll tell you, I was raised by my grandparents. So like, my mom and my dad met while he was on tour. They got married. She moved to where he was up in Boston. My mom got pregnant with me, and the management for Joe Perry Project and Aerosmith were the same, right? So the management of Aerosmith very much wanted which band made more money, right? Joe Perry Project, Aerosmith. They very much wanted Aerosmith back together, right? My dad was, as far from what I understand, I'll say that. We'll go with allegedly. I don't say allegedly, but I know it as fact. But he was an abusive piece of shit. Like, and he was OCD, and one night when my mom was 8.5 months pregnant with me, they got into an argument in the car and he punched her over a song on the radio, right? In Boston in December, right? In butt freezing cold ass weather. My mom was driving. She pulled the car over, put the keys between her fist, and beat the shit out of my dad and left the next day and never came back. Right?
It's a strong woman.
She is the shit. Right?
Miss my mom, man. Sorry. My adoptive mom was my best friend. I watched her battle breast cancer, dual mastectomy. She had a lung transplant, second oldest person in Canada to ever receive that transplant.
Wow.
I watched her ride a bike again, which was super cool. She was like a kid.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, I watched that transplant fail. And for the next year, I watched her die slowly.
Wow. Yeah.
And for months after she passed, I'd call her phone number. And obviously nobody would answer. And it would just kill me because something good would have happened. And I just wanted to tell my mom.
Yes.
And she was always so supportive. When my ex-wife and I split up and I had to quit my career and couldn't afford to, I had to make choices, whether it was to feed my kids or pay my mortgage. She would pay my mortgage so I could feed my kids. She would tell me it was going to be okay when I was held up in my bedroom for 7 hours, not knowing what I was going to do tomorrow or how I was going to make it to tomorrow. So to hear the strength of your mom, I watch strength in my mom as well. So that's just another part that will bond us even closer as friends.
For sure.
Being adopted, I always had that, I wasn't wanted. I was thrown away and picked up by these people. Luckily, I was picked up by the mom that I got.
Yeah.
My dad was an awesome guy when he was an awesome guy. When his demons weren't coming out.
I was going to say when he had a reprieve from the demons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when I turned 47 years old, I decided I would do a DNA test. And finally got the results back. And my wife, Tara, who I'm with now, such an amazing, supportive person. I'm not easy, dude. I'm not easy to deal with. My demons are deep, and they fight me every single day. So I got the results back. I started looking at the names and I was like, I don't know. I don't even care anymore. So she hopped on Facebook and found a aunt who happened to live, see, happened to live in Victoria, BC, which is a ferry ride from where I am. And she's like, look at this. And then that started within 24 hours. So I had found my birth mother, my birth father, my brothers, my sisters, my aunts. On my indigenous side, I have like 2,000 cousins. It's insane. Because apparently the Spahan guys were whores because they're on the rodeo circuit.
Oh, okay.
Well known in the rodeo world. My birth mom and my 3 brothers and my 2 sisters and my birth mom's husband have been so welcoming. One of my brothers, he's in the Navy. He messaged me the other day and said, I inspired him to pick up his guitar again because of my podcast, to go for it. My dad's side wants nothing to do with me. At least my dad and my brothers. Yeah. And the old me would have been hurt by that. And I said, you know what? I gave them the opportunity to get to know me.
Yes.
The person that I am, the person that I'm trying to build, just to be part of the legacy that I want to leave with this world. Man, I'm getting thumbs up like crazy. This is great. See, when I do it, it's not going to do it.
And it's just really bad timing when it's happening too.
It is. It's funny. That's what makes it the best. So, man, to hear your mom stand up for herself and just not take shit, man. Like, I don't know if you had a relationship with your dad or not. I'm assuming probably not. But bro, like, you're a good dude. Like, I can see it. You had a strong mom. You got a strong will, and man, I'm so happy to call you a friend.
Likewise, and
Like
thank
this,
you.
man. This shit is. It's not easy to let go because this is going to be heard by a whole bunch of people. I'm in 13 countries now,
Badass.
right? But more so, this is a place for friends to talk, for friends to
Yes.
be able to get things out, and for us to just be like, man, we love photography. You had your music. I had my skateboarding. That was my passion. We made choices, and those choices sometimes don't lead us where we want to go, but they leaded us to where we needed to go.
Right.
So it's never a wrong choice. It's a
Yeah.
what if choice.
Right. It's that hindsight thing of being 2020, but it's like you don't have the full vision of what 2020 is without those experiences that lead you to be able to look back. Right. And you know, with my dad, I've only met my father one time in my life. Apparently when I was 3. They flew me up there to meet him and hang out with him and stuff. And I've got photos of it. I don't remember it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he put me behind his drum set and like he played Legos with me in cars and stuff. And then I went home and the family hid him from me still to this day, right? My mom had her own demons and my mom made choices back then that my grandparents raised me. My mom wasn't around a whole lot for a very long time, but so in a similar fashion to you, my mom was adopted, right? And it was the adoptive grandparents that raised me, right? My dad's side of the family is from the Northeast, like Boston, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, that kind of thing. And my mom's side of the family is essentially like all here from like Bumpkin, Texas, like East Texas, and essentially the Texas, Louisiana, ding, 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 like, right?
That's one way to describe it.
Yeah, like, uh, and so I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandmother contracted or came down with or whatever came down with multiple sclerosis when I was very young, 5, 6 years old. And so within 3 to 4 years of, and this is very early on when multiple sclerosis was starting to be understood as it was a condition, right? Like I remember when she first got multiple sclerosis and she's going to neurologists and stuff. And again, I'm in Houston, so we're at Methodist uh and our medical center down here is just top fucking tier, right? Like Houston is a lot of things, not all great. But one thing that Houston has that brings the world here is our medical and healthcare, right? We've got neurologists and cardiologists that have led the way in treatments and solutions and procedures that have helped save all kinds of lives, right? It was early on enough in multiple sclerosis, the timeline of multiple sclerosis, when the FDA decided that she was essentially she was part of the initial trials for what now interferon, right? So I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's like I guess like the leading treatment for multiple sclerosis at this point, and is so effective at it that what happened to my grandmother back then does not happen essentially anymore, right? But she was so far progressed into the disease that when she started the trial, it put a pause button on it, but it didn't fix anything, right? So she was completely bedridden. And I spent a lot of my time as I was young back and forth to hospitals and, learning how to feed her and change her diaper. And because my grandpa is also old, right? He ended up having like a double bypass and he's also like, not that they were necessarily good or bad people. That's a different route, but like that was the trial by fire for me, right? And I didn't have my mom that was there, and I had the dad side of the family that was hiding him. And like I didn't know until I was 18 years old that I had apparently a half brother and half sister, right? I wouldn't meet them until I was almost 30. Um, and then my half brother and I do not get along. My half sister and myself, that nature versus nurture thing, you put us in a car together and you would think that we were the same fucking person. Like, she's creative and exuberant and intelligent and just fuck, man. Like, it was that person, like, you meet somebody like that for the first time and you've known each other since the beginning of time. It was so weird. It was so weird. And the only thing that I could think is I wasn't mad at my dad. I felt sorry because he missed that, right? He was part of both of us. He helped make all of us, and he missed it. He missed out on the years of me learning how to play music and following in this creative footstep. I didn't know why I was driven to it, right? But because now my mom and I are extremely close, right? We've forged a relationship in the past decade after my grandparents, long dead, in the grave. And, when I was 21, I had to make the decision. I had to make the decision whether or not to take my grandma off of life support or not, right? And I was the one who helped care for her from literally when I'm 6, 7 years old until I'm 21, right? And one of the things I'm sure that you've experienced this yourself is it's not only that thing of you're watching somebody waste away, but you don't actually know that they're wasting away. You get used to them being sick, and then all of a sudden you're not seeing those little downturns as they're happening, right? It's almost like when I lost a lot of weight, right? I saw myself every day in the mirror. So I didn't see myself losing weight, right? But other people would see me at 6 months, like intervals, right? And they're like, oh man, holy shit, you're like half of a person, right? You get so accustomed to how someone is that you don't even actually understand the reality of what you're dealing with, right? And then that eventual inevitable end comes, and it's just like a brick wall that you ran into, you know? But that's all to say, when I'm in the womb, I'm at Joe Perry rehearsals, right? My mom would tell me that like my dad would start playing and Joe Perry would start playing and I would start kicking in the stomach. And so my dad missed all of that. I'm not mad at him. I feel sorry for him because I'm not a parent. I will never have children, right? Like, but I know the level of care that I put in, right? When I'm committed to someone and I'm committed to someone's well-being, I am there until the end, either their end or my end. I will not falter. And I just felt sorry for him because one of the things that actually solidified why I will not actually say allegedly to what happened between my mom and my father, when I met my half sister, she told me the same behavioral traits and uh-ohs, like the abuse from my father that was laid upon her that my mother had told me about. These people had never met, and their accounts were exactly the same. And that was the break between my brother and myself, because his first foot that he put through the door was telling me that it was my mom's fault, was trying to recount my dad's version of it to me. And I told him, I was like, nope, we're not doing that. Absolutely not. I'm like, already met my sister. I know that you're full of shit. You know why? Because our sister and my mother, who have never met, saw the same things and experienced the same behavior at his hands. And he missed out on me. He missed out on learning who I was and being he missed out on being able to have pride in who I became, other than I knew who I did not want to be. And I think as a father, like as a man, if the biggest influence that you imbue on your children is the example to never be like, you have fucked up. And that's one of those things that he will remember on his deathbed. That is going to be something that he thinks about. And he's never going to admit it. And I'm sure that the family that's around him will never admit it. But he's going to remember, because I know he knows what I'm doing. Right? Like, I know that he keeps just enough tabs on me to know that I'm not going to show up at his doorstep tomorrow and punch his teeth in. And it's like, I feel sorry for him at that point. Right. And like, and I've gone through the abusive cycles with uncles and all that kind of crap. Right. I had a piece of shit ass uncle that decided that he was going to discipline me, and his best friend was able to get in on it, and my grandparents did nothing to stop it. Right. So this rando fuck ass, when I'm, 10, 11, 12 years old, is sitting there beating my ass with a belt with my uncle, while I'm, telling them like, I'm not being bad. Like, I just don't think that these people love me. Right. And like, there's no accountability there, that kind of thing. And what's fucked up about it, I don't want to start a shit storm or whatever, but like, I don't actually give a shit. But that friend, he's somebody, the dude's a real estate agent here in town with me. And I had to interact with his fuck ass wife about a year and a half ago. And it is one of the things that actually solidified what in the fuck am I doing? Because I could hear that dude, like his wife and himself are both agents here in town. And I'm a realtor, right? I'm a dumbass, stupid, scuzzy realtor that's trying to get out of the business. But, I had these clients that they were very specific. Like, every buyer is very specific about their house, and that's not a big issue. But I remember very clearly, like, I called about a showing that my clients wanted. And when the person on the phone picked up, and it was creepy, she's like, "Do you recognize my voice?" And I'm like, "No. Why the fuck would I recognize your voice? You're a real estate agent. I don't want anybody to recognize my voice." And she's like, "Oh, I'm blah, blah, blah's wife." And I was just like, oh, my gut sank. And I heard him breathing. And I got off the phone and I called my client and I was like, "Hey, I don't want to like trauma dump on you, but you need to understand the position that I'm in right now. Um, if you really want this place and you end up wanting to buy it, I'm gonna have to give you off to another agent." And they were kind of confused as to why, and I explained the situation. I'm like, I'll go to jail. because he's going to show up at the closing table and I'm going to kill him. I'm not going to ruin his real estate business. I'm going to kill him. So
I feel that, brother.
I'm just like, and they were really understanding. They didn't buy the house, that, you know what I mean? But it was that moment of, I was willing to walk away from all of that commission with someone that I had been working with for 6 months over this. And I had just lost my best friend to suicide. And I was just in this headspace where it was like, what in the fuck am I doing? Like, I know that I'm helping people. I got into this. I became a real estate agent because I legitimately thought that real estate sucked. Right. I was like, I had a really bad experience and I was like, Jesus Christ, like this can be done better. Right. And that's why I got into it. I got into real estate to be a disruptor, essentially. Right. And I've been really successful at it because the same conversations that we're having right now, like, I'm not afraid to have the conversations with, I'm not afraid to be transparent. I'm not afraid to be open with people because kind of like your mission statement, essentially, like the more that we're able to have open, honest, and transparent conversations about this, there are what, 8 billion people on the planet or whatever. Like, and if I can help one person understand that they are not alone in this shitty, deep, crappy pile of self-doubt and imposter syndrome and traumatic experiences and stuff, and feeling like they're not good enough for whatever reason, because they don't make enough money and they don't do this, they don't do that, whatever. If one person can get that little light out of that thing and live the next day, worth it. And I understand that sounds like I'm very far up my own ass. Like, I understand it sounds super pretentious, right?
No,
but
man.
Like, all of us have those potentials to have impact in whatever circles that we're in. You know, you can be as impactful as somebody as a Metallica, right? You can be as impactful as somebody like a Pantera, or you can be impactful in your neighborhood community. You can be impactful because you make bread for everyone that does not have money to buy bread. You can be impactful in your community by being the dumbass that has chickens in his backyard and gives away eggs to everyone, right? And never charges. And you can be impactful in all these kind of situations, and it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with getting that person, somebody, whether it be a singular person or a group of people, out of their demon's way that day. Because sometimes that is all they need. They need to win an argument with a demon, right? That's all they need to do. They need to be able to block out that voice of that demon going, you know what? If you weren't here tomorrow, nobody would fucking care. And because too many people succumb to that, because they don't have someone to just be a pinhole light in a dark fucking room. And the dark is so dark. It makes me really mad when I hear suicide spoken about, how selfish it is, because, and this is probably going to piss off a lot of people that are listening, but it's like, I understand why it seems like a selfish thing, but that idea that in that moment, it doesn't seem selfish to the person who's thinking about doing it. They see it as doing a service to everyone around because they feel like a burden in that moment. They don't see it as selfish. They see it as giving because you're taking out a burden. And you see yourself as that burden. And even the idea that, like, oh, well, just talk to me, do this. It's like, even in that moment, the fact that they're already in that mindset means that they are not going to reach out for help because they already think that they're a burden on the world. They think that they're valueless in the world. They think that because they got fired the day before, because they made a bad choice or something, because their boss told them that they're not worthy of that paycheck, that all of a sudden that they're worth nothing. And they're worth so much to so many people. Either sometimes in very direct manners or very like passive things where it's just like your mom. You just want to call him, right? We forget that when we're in those dark rooms. We forget that when we're having those conversations with those demons. And the world will tell us over and over and over again that the dark is right and the demon is right. And it's just fucked. It's just fucked. Not to, I really don't want to interrupt you. These sort of conversations and this sort of openness and transparency, like if all of us could get closer to this as an ideal, holy shit.
Right.
I just imagine the phone calls of people that would be made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That more people wouldn't be wondering or missing a prideful moment in their life that they want to text their best friend.
Or their mom.
But that number is disconnected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like even with my mom, when we're forging our relationship or whatever, it's like she'll, for a long time, she would apologize to me, this, that, and the other. And it's like, no. Like I finally had to do that thing with her where it was like, you need to stop. And not to be shitty to you, but like, I've forgiven you. That's why I want this to go on. We don't need to talk about this anymore. You don't need to apologize. I love you. You are my mother. You made one of the strongest decisions that anybody would have ever made for me when you did not allow me or yourself to be in that position. He did that once and you left. Like literally everything else that comes after that is washed away because I could have been in that dude's basement. Right? But instead, we didn't get all this time while, I'm being raised by my grandparents or whatever. But you know what we have left? We have time now. And I don't want to sit there and think about apologies and regret and repent and all that kind of shit. I love you. You're my mother. I want to be around you as much as I can. I would like for our relationship to be built on fuck all that. Let's make the best use of the time going forward. I don't know, dude. I understand that's probably like way the fuck deeper. Like people are like, I was coming on here for film photography. Like this doesn't sound like Portrait 800. It's like Ilford. It's black and white and it's very grainy. I don't know.
The point of this is to allow everyone to hear that it's okay to share your journey. It's okay to share what you've been through. I know you saw that thumbs up hit the screen, and I hate it. Yeah,
but it came at a good time this time. So
it did. I mean, everything you said, one, hit me deep and impacted me. It's true. There's so many people that think they're a burden on society, that they're a burden on the ones around them. And at one point, I was there.
Yes.
When I had to make choices about feeding my children. Or feeding myself, obviously they won out. So there'd be days I'd go to bed starving and I'd go upstairs and I'd cry in my bedroom, not letting anybody see because I'm a man and I need to suck that shit up.
Yeah.
But now, man, after watching my ex-wife for 6 months in a coma because of fentanyl overdose and having to explain it to my children, life is so short and it's so fragile.
Yes.
And as a society, if we don't get to a point where everyone can be like, I'm hurting today, man.
Yeah.
My best friend and I, two of the burliest dudes you'll see, man, when we hang up the phone, love your brother, and
yeah.
And people look at us weird that we say it, but I say it because that's the man who stood beside me when I was at my lowest.
Yes.
When my group of friends that I'd had for years and years and years believed nonsense and bullshit my ex-wife said and then bailed on me.
Yeah.
When I needed a friend because I was raising 4 kids by myself.
Yeah.
No help, no nothing. And they all bailed on me, dude.
Yeah.
They believed a lie. And I finally said years later, I said, if those rumors were true, why are my children with me?
Right.
My buddy Ryan stayed with me. Same scenario. I met Ryan and I was like, I've known you forever, dude. We're connected somewhere.
Yeah.
Anything I needed, middle of the night, he didn't give a shit. He'd be at my house.
Yeah.
I couldn't pay my bills. He would go without to help me make sure I could keep a roof over the head.
Yeah.
And you don't find people like that very often, man. And
Right.
you coming on here and being willing to just be open and express things that I can see in your eyes are painful. Bro, like, you need anything, man, I'm here anytime.
Likewise.
You are, I don't know, man. I feel like we have some kind of soul connection, and that sounds fucking corny and shit, but there's something about the way our conversation's gone, even our pre-conversation. That's my bad. Sorry, I didn't turn off the, I don't even know what photographer just sent me an email, but they're going to get an earful.
Stop it.
I'm in a good interview here. Stop.
Out of office, motherfucker. Out of office.
But man, like, the openness, people are going to come on and they're going to listen and they're going to hear that, yes, you've had pain. Yes, you've had, all this bullshit, but man, you care. You want people to be okay. You want people to be successful. You want people to just know that it's okay to share the pain they feel. And if I could find a way so everybody could understand, like, I don't care how tough you are, how big and burly you are, how fucking many tattoos you have, how badass you tell everybody you are. It's okay to be not okay.
Yes.
It's also okay to share that you're not okay and have a group of people that are willing to accept that and be there for you when you need them.
Yes.
And society makes that not cool.
Tangent. Life motto, right? Pet peeve, big pet peeve. People that are like, well, I went through this, so why should you have it easier? Craziest shit to me. The only thing that I can think in my head, and which essentially becomes my North Star for everything, right, is I have suffered, so you should never. Because I know how to guide you. I know how to help to help steer that ship away from troubled waters, or tell you, like, hey, I know that you're disoriented right now. Everything seems like it looks the same, and all of that same is bad. But there is a crest on the other side. You don't have to take my hand. Don't even acknowledge me. Just follow my shadow. You don't have to tell me thank you. I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to get out of this pit.
You sure we're not related?
I don't know. You said that you have 2,000 cousins. So,
because I believe the same motto. I've always wanted to guide people in this world. I've always wanted to make a difference in a way that not the way my father wanted me to do, because if it had his way, I'd be a professional athlete by now. Yeah. Making all these millions, blah, blah. This is my son. He plays all-star. Yeah. That was what it was growing up. Yeah. I hated all of that shit.
Yeah. I was supposed to be a teacher, like an elementary school teacher. My grandpa was he was a principal for a really long time. And all of it is like what is that? My daddy and his daddy's daddy and his daddy's daddy were all teachers, like that sort of thing.
Oh man, so, that's like, amazing.
All of my little things that I wanted to do, like when I'm young, like I knew that I wanted to play guitar, and I didn't know why I wanted to play guitar. Right. But I heard it in my head, and I knew that it wasn't even like one of those questions of like, can I? It was, I need to get a guitar and learn how to do this because I know I can fucking do it. I see it and I hear it. I know that I can do this. I just need the thing. I need the tool. Right. Oh, you're wasting your life. Like, that kind of shit. Right. Because that's what worked for them, but they didn't. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about the dead, right? But like, being squished in those kind of boxes. I think one of the most valuable lessons and valuable qualities that parents can pass to their children is worth, right? Um, and that is not something that I ever got, because my grandparents didn't like my mother, right? And everything that I did was like, ah, you're just like your mother. So I never understood what having self-worth uh and value to myself was. It's something that I had to build myself. And it was something that I kind of had to forge in objective manners. It's this thing of like, you're telling me that I'm not worth this, but I'm helping you stay alive. So fucking clearly there's a disconnect, right? Like, you can tell me anything that you fucking want, but if I decided at my ripe old age of 13 to fuck right off, y'all'd be up shit creek without a paddle, right? But boy, I'll tell you, that gives imposter syndrome, because it doesn't matter how good you get at shit, doesn't matter how much you accomplish or anything like that. If you don't have that little kernel of self-worth, the understanding that is a very foundational thing, that if parents, when parents do it right, self-worth and self-value to a child is built as foundational as a language, right? It's one of my favorite talking points. Like, I'm a white dude, right? I don't necessarily want to go down this path because I don't want to be like super divisive and stuff, but like, as accomplished as I am, as much as I've done or as good as I've done, and whatever I've been through, that thing, I was born with a silver spoon to some degree. I'm a straight white dude in this world. Like, I am a walking participation trophy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I did this. It's like, it's because the whole world was built for me. If anything, I should be better, right? So when I get backed into a corner, like, strangers like to talk to me. It's a really strange thing that happens. Like, when I'm out, I always have really weird encounters with strangers that just like, I'll tell you the Bishop Farter story. Hopefully he doesn't hear this. I'm like, what? He remembers that? He heard it? Like, yeah, I fucking heard it. But like, I'll always get backed in the corner, and because, outwardly, I probably look like I believe a certain way, and driving the truck does not help, right? Because dudes will do that dick swingy thing of like, oh, it's a 6-cylinder, huh? It's like, and what? Get in. It's like, you need to wear a plastic baggie because I'm going to make you shit yourself, and I don't want it on my seats.
It's okay because they drive diesels that only the front's lifted.
Salt life. But it's funny, right? And I was actually, Dave and I had this conversation too. It's interesting because they approach me in a state where they assume that I'm on the same belief plane as they are. And it means that in that moment, they're disarmed, right? And in that moment, when those little decisive conversations start happening, when you can tell that they're like playing the jockey, like dick swingy helicopter game, right? It's just like, because they think that I already believe something in a certain manner, like, it's that moment, right? Because when somebody is disarmed in that moment, they're actually willing to have a discussion that's honest, not where you are telling them that they are wrong, but where you're asking them questions that put them into, well, why do I believe this if I also believe this? Right? So one of the favorite things that I love getting into with people is when they're like, oh, participation trophy, you know, you don't deserve that. You don't deserve this, man. Like, hey, so why are you proud of speaking English? Like, what? Like, well, I mean, why are you proud of speaking English? Like, what did you do to earn it? Well, I went to school. No, 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 no. How about this? Do you remember your first word? Well, no. Think real hard. I'll give you my truck if you can remember your first word. Keys. Well, no, I can't. So why are you proud of it? Like you were speaking English, you understood English before you ever knew what English was. So now they're like, whoa, I never thought about that. Right. So that's what a bias is. And now everything that you're encountering in life, you're encountering with that bias in mind because you see that it's going this certain way because you already started over here. Right. And all I'm asking you to do is consider the fact that if you don't deconstruct what those biases are, you're doing a lot of harm. You don't see it as harm, but the impact that you're having on folks in your circle and stuff can be very detrimental, right? And end up, instead of getting in fights with people, like shaking hands and like, you know, having conversations and stuff. And a lot of that, one of my favorite things is like this whole like red pill alpha male bullshit, which fucking hilarious. Like I definitely used to believe that bullshit too. And then I started thinking, like I turned my brain on. Like, why do I agree with this? And you know, like do you know about that like where the alpha male, like alpha wolf dog shit came from? Like that scientist that did the studies, right? Do you know? So essentially the scientist, like he had a bunch of wolves. He saw that one wolf would essentially like take lead of this pack. And all of this theory came out as a result of that, right? That's where this like alpha male, alpha wolf stuff comes from. That same scientist would later go on to go, ha, you know what? I was wrong. And this is why I was wrong. Because in the wild, wolves don't live like this. They were reacting to a stimuli that I put them under. This is a stress response. This is me putting them in some shit that was unnatural and then me going, oh, look how they're reacting. That's a natural response. No, the fuck it isn't. So when some dude comes up and they're like, oh, I'm an alpha male, blah, blah, blah.
Bleh. Sorry. It's just so fucking disgusting.
One of the funniest things to me about that whole like shebang, when I hear some dude start yabbing on about being alpha because he's so strong, sometimes I'll say this, but like, it's crazy to me because it's like, dude, you're so far Zed that you don't even understand that you're about to get passed by everybody else. Because the only thing that you're good at is living the most under a stress response that our society has told you. That's it. It's not natural. So you're about to get lapped. Like I would say that you're the weakest of everyone because at this point, like you have to wear this on your sleeve like it's your character trait. Like it's your value is this, I'm an alpha male because I'm angry and mean and I'm tough and I'm so buff. And like you're you're gonna pop. Like, the only thing that you've done is figure out how to manipulate yourself inside of this system. I think the true innovators of the world in our society go, man, like we created this. Why did we create it wrong? We have very short timeline. Like we have short lives. So most of the changes that we have specifically on like a societal level and stuff will never like, you know, what's that saying? Like the true heroes are the people who plant trees of the shade that they'll never enjoy. Right. that it's not about how you benefit from something in the moment, much like you were saying on the very front end of like this instant gratification thing. Like, I'm only going to do something good because somehow I benefit from it.
Yeah, it's like
You're not doing
celebrities who
good.
do go to the food kitchen just to have that photo opportunity.
Dude, I'll tell you, this is going to sound extremely hypocritical. So forgive me for one moment, but like, I volunteer with food bank, with all that kind of stuff. I never talk about it.
And that's how it
Like,
should be.
I don't talk about it other than like here. Like, my wife doesn't even know that I'll go and volunteer sometimes, just because I enjoy doing it. I like cooking, so going to the food bank and prepping food, cool. It's something that I would do any of the fuck ways. So why not do it for more than just my own fat self? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. And especially like nowadays, like, but you know, you're very right that I think one of the issues that we kind of face a lot is that we have instant gratification, but it's something that's, I don't want to say that we're not responsible for it, right? But it's like it's a standard that we've grown up understanding to be true. And I think a lot of people a lot of people are just doing their best to try to get by, right? Because to be real super honest, like when I see somebody and like they're being shitty and whatnot, I feel sorry for them because I don't understand how we've got all the information at our fingertips and we've got so much like instant communication and we've got so much wealth in the world and stuff. And people choose to make their entire personality to be shitty and troll other people. Like, how small, how small and how hurt are you that that's the joy that you get out of life? You're stoked because you made somebody cry. You're stoked because you made somebody angry on the internet. Like, man, you're lacking inside. You're in a really dark room and you don't even have somebody to shine a light on you. And you're trying to drag other people into that dark room with you. That's all you're doing. You have so little value that you're lying to yourself that your value is that you can affect someone in a way. And man, that's got to be a vapid existence. You know, like if I left this earth tomorrow, I know that I've made people smile. I know that I've helped some of my friends in some of their darkest places. I know that when my buddy took his life, when my buddy took his life and I got that call from a mutual friend that, you know, later on in the day, the family reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you mind helping us with the estate and doing this kind of stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do that. That's not a big deal." That whole time that I was working to help them liquidate the assets and sell the house and all that kind of stuff, right? Um, all of those assets were going into a trust fund for his daughter. I wasn't working for my buddy anymore. I was working for his daughter. She didn't know it. She's 12. You know, my buddy, I never followed photographers, right? Just now am I buying like photography books because I'm so infatuated with trying to figure out the the magic juice of Kodachrome and figuring out how to do
Fred
that.
Herzog, master of
Bro.
Kodachrome.
Oh, modern color is right here.
Are you serious?
but but I did have a few small, very strong photographer friends that were very instrumental when I was figuring out a camera, like how to use it. And literally because I wanted to take pictures of my guitars and my dogs, and the dogs being the important one, right? That was legitimately it. Um, My buddy John, he didn't really teach me so much about photography, but he taught me a whole lot about Adobe and Photoshop and stuff, right? Like we did a whole lot of that stuff where like he would take control of my computer screen and like, hey, this is how I'm editing this. Like essentially we were doing master classes for ourselves before there was Skillshare, right?
Yeah.
And we were just doing it because we were homies. Like I legitimately met him because he happened to be at the bar that my band was playing at that night. And it was a last minute show. And he took some photos of us. And there was this redheaded girl that was so cool, so pretty. And I was just like, I was in the band and I didn't know how to talk to her. So I saw John like standing next to her, right? I was like, oh, I know how to get. I want to figure out is that like her boyfriend or what? So I got some band shirts. And I was like, there's only like 30 people here, whatever. I'm just going to give away band shirts, right? And I was just like beelined. And I gave John a shirt and I gave Katie a shirt and Julie, her friend that was there with her as well. And figured out real quick that John was not her boyfriend, that he had a wife at home, but he was like a big rockabilly dude, right? Like real into that scene, like big pomp, like all that kind of stuff. But he just really liked music and he was a really fucking talented photographer. And that's how our friendship started. I learned a lot from John. I learned a lot from, I'm going to mispronounce her name. And if she listens to this, I apologize. I'm so sorry. Kaori. She was so cool to me. Like we met because of guitar forums and stuff back in the day. And she was so cool to me. And has always been super supportive, even to this day, to be honest. Taught me a whole lot about Lightroom and like specifically tone curves. She taught me a whole lot about. And another buddy of mine named Alex Sorokin. He's also in Canada. He
All the best of us are.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd move there if I could get a job there, but y'all won't let us Texans in because you think we're all dumb hillbillies.
Hey, wait
Or
a
at least
minute.
according to Dave. Like, oh yeah, they just think you're all stupid ass cowboys in California. Good luck. I'm like, shit. But no, but but Alex, kind of like Jay, in fact, played guitar, is the most anal retentive person I have ever known in my life. Like and I've never met the dude in person, but his attention to detail on stuff that just like, dude, I would have never seen that. And you're replicating it. What? And not on one thing. Everything he does in life is like that. Right. But he builds guitars now and just immaculate instruments. Like I've never even played one, but I know one of these days I'm going to convince him to make me a guitar so I can just hang it on my wall and go, hey, it's Alex. But between Kiori, John, and Alex taught me the magic of the 50 millimeter 1.8. Kaori taught me the magic of Lightroom curves. John taught me, oh, you can heal this in Photoshop. Check this out. This is how a layer works. Right? I still have Kay and I still have Alex. I lost John. And after it was all said and done, the mother of their child invited me over because she was going through some of John's stuff and his camera gear was there. And she was essentially asking me if I wanted any of it, right? And he had this like custom 7D Mark II, I think is if I remember right, like one of the Canons, and some EF glass and stuff like that. But like his camera was pinstriped because again, rockabilly, right? And I sat there and I taught his daughter how to use his camera. And I didn't actually realize like what I was doing in the moment. I was just laying there on the floor with his daughter, and you know, teaching her how to use the camera that had essentially built the relationship between her dad and myself when she was 3 years old, right? Some of the first portraits that I ever took were just of me at John's house, like taking pictures of my buddy because it was his birthday and stuff, right? And I remember Margie and Margie and myself cleaning out his house to get it ready for listing photos, and just kind of like sitting there and seeing Margie cry because like there was Kool-Aid on the wall, right? And she's like, "Oh, it's because he was angry." I know that it was. Like they've been estranged for a really long time, right? They weren't together when this happened. But her sitting there like cleaning this Kool-Aid off the wall. And like we were in that together because of this like mutual bond of pain and shittiness that came from this. And knowing that in those dark times, John had done all of this stuff to make sure that when he left, everything was set up. He took himself out because he thought he was a burden. You know what I mean? But one of the things that we figured out is he had deleted all of his hard drives, everything. He'd wiped all of his work. He'd wiped his Facebook. He deleted that. He deleted he deleted everything. All of that work that he had made, gone. Only things that survive of his work and his influence are a few prints that he made during that time. And I've got a couple of them here in the room. And it just kind of makes me wonder, like, kind of going back to what we were talking about is like, if it not for those few prints and not making a couple of these things tangible, he's got a daughter. But like, man, he was so influential, right? Like, if those three people wouldn't have been so gracious to me, like we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. You know what I mean? That idea of the kind of almost like the rock chip theory, like it's so tiny, but the way that it spider webs you, what is it? The butterfly effect, I guess, essentially. Um, I guess part of that is just kind of like trying to make sure that influence and uh, the loss and stuff has some sort of purpose that leads beyond. You know what I mean? And whether that be having conversations about mental health, whether that be talking about photography or me. If John would have gate kept me, nothing would have ever happened. You know what I mean? But he was gracious with his knowledge. It's that thing of like, I've learned this. I want you to know it too. And it doesn't need to be behind a paywall. Communal knowledge is a strength. Collective unity is all of our power. Like we can legitimately shift the tides with that. But we get so fragmented nowadays because we feel like we're all like fighting over this single little grain of sand or like, grain of wheat or whatever. When there's a field of it behind a barbed wire fence. And instead of going after the one that put up the barbed wire fence, we'd like attack each other. Oh, you don't need to, I don't want to teach you how to do this. Buy my master class. You need to like follow this algorithm, do this because this is going to get your engagement. Like, shut up. Even at that point, all of us are a collection of everything that came before us. All of it. Every single influence, negative, bad, neutral, all of that. I understand, and I definitely understand that it feels really shitty sometimes when like somebody just outright rips us off, what we think is our style. I may have not followed a lot of photographers, but boy, howdy, I loved Ridley Scott. So I think one of the things that if people are looking at my work and they're like, man, it just looks like it's like otherworldly. It's like, yes, because I grew up drawing Alien and Predator every single day, the same photo. I didn't even realize it, right? But it has that ghastly sort of like otherworldly thing. And inside of that, that's how I see the world. Not necessarily in like a negative sense, right? But you've said this. I've actually gotten this compliment a lot and this critique a lot, this statement a lot, I guess, that the way I guess my images like evoke a certain emotion, like it's there's this idea that when the people that like my images see them, especially when we talk about them, like if they ask me a question, it's not hard for them to be exactly where I was. Not positionally, not in the location, right? But they're able to like kind of mind meld into like what I was feeling when I took that photo, right? Because that's one of the things that data acquisition doesn't do very good. It doesn't express emotion, doesn't capture emotion. That's where we come in, right? Because we're interpreting that data set at the end and going, okay, I'm going to push this slider. Oh, yeah, there it is. That's how I remember it, right? And trying to capture that little like that lightning in a bottle in that moment, right? So that when I look at an image in the same way that like when I think about a song that the band that I was in that we all wrote together, I don't just remember the song. I remember the fact that like I burned the burgers that night. You know what I mean? I remember that my dog, like Loki, had pissed on this leather like love seat couch thing that I had, and one of my buddies from LA in that band like sat in the pee spot that night. I know it's gross, but like I remember that's the stuff that I remember, right? Because it's like that's what that stuff evokes out of us. And I think as we get older, especially, and as our bodies start to not lie to us, but just kind of fail us, right? Not necessarily like after we're gone. I mean, that would be nice too, but to be able to remember those good moments because it's only in hindsight a lot of the times that we remember how great that moment was. But without the moment, good, bad, or otherwise, we would never have the hindsight to be able to look back with wow, like either in reverence of pride or wow, how far have I come? It's that thing of you lose weight a little at a time and you see yourself in the mirror every single day and you never realize that until you look at a picture of yourself now versus a picture of yourself 5 years ago. And then you're like, holy shit, I actually did do some things. I think the creative, I think the fact that we've as a society gone real out of the way to like defund creative endeavors, to defund arts in schools, to defund music programs and stuff, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Because I think the only thing that we do really good as humans is be creative.
Yep.
We can love, that makes us special, and we can make art and we can create. And if we take one of those things away, I feel like what's left over is we miss our foundation because art and creation is political. Art and creation is emotional. Art and creation it's ties that bind that have no language. I've bonded with people that I do not speak their language. Won't ever learn it. They don't speak English either. They really like to riff. That connected us. There's people that that will interact, they'll like that I find on Instagram, on social media or whatever, that I'm just like blown away by their photography and their expression and stuff. And then I'm like, I go to the profile or whatever, and it's like, ooh, see translation. But at the end of the day, I didn't actually need the translation because I knew exactly what they meant. That's why it hit me so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We could repair so many bonds that are broken by really, I think, delving into what we are as a species. Because the thing that we always leave behind is art. The thing that we look back on in reverence is art. It's pottery. It's these creations that we've made. And we look back and go, oh, they were so primitive. How did they figure out fire or math? Or like, who's the first dude to pick up a pointed stick and go, that's a tasty bug. Hey, fucker, that thing that you made the other day, the one that burns you, I bet you I can put this on it and it'll taste good. Like, you know what I mean? And they did that with like, and it's so fucking important, but we're so far away from, I think, that thought process right now. And I think that that's one of the bigger things that we're seeing come out in society. I feel like it's one of the things that really divides us a whole lot, is that the further we get away from those like fundamental truths that I think, and I truly believe are what makes humans like special, right? The worse for the wear that we are. And you've mentioned this before, that like photography is your therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's one of the things that helps quiet your demons, right? One of the biggest things that really sucked about John, and I kept on pestering him about it, is that he had given up photography. He thought he wasn't good enough. He didn't take a photo for like 2.5 years or something leading up to him taking his life. One of the last conversations that we had is he had been thinking about getting his camera back out because he wanted to collaborate with me to do a photo shoot of his daughter. And instead, I was having to teach his daughter how to use his camera. And it was in that summer that I was like, understand that I had used my photography stuff in my business a whole lot, like all my photos and like all the real estate marketing that I do for listings, the videography, the photography, the marketing, all that kind of stuff, all the SEO, like the logistical under the hood crap. It was always nice being able to be a photographer because I could essentially in-house all of that stuff myself. And so I got to have a whole lot of discretionary control on, oh, this is how this house should be presented because this is its best angles, instead of farming it out to like real estate photographers that like, oh, well, I do this one style, right? But that one style doesn't apply to every household, right? So I could get kind of spacey and weird and stuff with certain like artsy fartsy houses and stuff, right? So I'd always use that as a business practice, as a tool for myself, but I never really thought of it in a creative like documentary sense, if that makes like kind of sense. And I'm probably not saying that right, but when John took his life, I was like, man, I need to do more with this, because how could I be mad at him for giving this up when he came to me because he wanted to do this? Like, I'm wasting this ability too. Like, I feel like I'm piddling away the knowledge that he was so gracious to help me learn as well, right? And so that summer, I was like, fuck it. You know what? I've never been to a national park. And I went to Moab. I had a Sony A7R3, right? And took that fucker to Moab. And I just happened to be there when there was a bunch of wildfires on the West Coast. And so It's like August of 21, I guess, probably when that was. So we were just kind of coming out of like the like legit lockdowns, and we already heard like, oh, well, it's over. And you know what I mean? Like, are we still masking? Are we not masking? I don't, you know what? I'm just going to bring them with me. I don't really plan to see a whole lot of people, but if I see someone, I'm going to mask up, right? And so I ended up in Moab and went to Arches because I realized that when I was in Moab, that Arches was legitimately 3 minutes from the hotel that I had like landed at, and went there when the air advisory was out. It was like, oh no, because it's smoky, it's bad for your lungs. And I was like, fuck that. I'm gonna go take photos. Right.
Sounds
And
about
so there
right.
was essentially like nobody at Arches.
Unheard of.
Dude, no shit. I I guess I didn't really take it into account of how like specific of a time that I was there. I was there 3 days before that whole Gabby Petito thing happened, right there in Moab. Like we legitimately probably crossed paths, right? Like that kind. And I didn't know who she was. I didn't know any of that stuff until like I finally got home. And then like, people are freaking out about like this girl in Moab that was, missing. And I'm like, I mean, I was just there. What were they driving? Did I see that thing? That sort of thing, right? But that's all to say that, I'm there in Arches, and there's I ended up at what is it, double O arch or whatever. And there were like 15 people there, right? And I just remember coming through the park and seeing all of the wildfire smoke that was essentially filling in every single crevice between the buttes and like the spires and all that kind of stuff. And I started taking these photos that looked the opening scene of Alien when they found the I don't know, it's not Nosferatu. God, like 10-year-old me would be really mad at me right now for forgetting this. But but you know what I mean? Like when they found that ship that they didn't know what the hell it was, and then we would learn later on in the canon or whatever that it was the engineers, right? And Prometheus and stuff. They back then they always referred to it as the space jockey in that big thing, right? I was taking these photos and looking on the back of the camera, and I'm like, holy fuck, I am Ridley Scott. This rules. Like, holy shit. I want to print this huge as shit. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. I was like, oh, this is what it's about. Nobody was here with me. Whoa. I have this memory, and you know what? Like I know that I've got this data right now. So my memory can never actually fail me because I've always, at least I have this on a memory card. Hopefully the memory card does not fail. When I get to the point where I'm printing stuff and now like making these tangible things, it's like, no, that's a real moment in time that happened. Right?
Yep.
It's crazy to me that we've got so many resources and yet we're so like stuck in not living like what I think the human experience is. We're living in chasing the money experience. You know what I mean?
I do.
I don't know. That's again, different direction, but like I guess that whole like socio-political thing is not the direction that like photography channels should go into, but it's just another aside. Like when people bitch about, I don't want to see politics on my timeline. I want to see photography. I want to see art. I want to see music. It's like, dude, like all of that creation is political too.
Yep.
Like you listen to Jimi Hendrix and you still have some shit to say like that. Like that, and all of these generations have this foundation of being able to speak their minds and speak whether you agree with it or not, the ability for us to create and infuse all of that work with with ideas, with passion, with care for others, and share that with everyone so that you can build community built on communal ideas of like, man, we can actually make something better. And is it a silly picture? Maybe. It's no more silly of a picture than carving that's 1,000 years old. That's an important fucking statement. Because it's like, dude, no, we were here. Like, it's as important as seeing a fossilized, like, a dinosaur footprint and going, whoa, that was a big fucking lizard. That is a tactical chicken. Holy shit. You know what I mean? Still won't accept that T-Rex had feathers, but like, you know what I mean? So like, I'm not completely adverse to denying science in certain like places, but imagine, I don't know, just imagine how less cool Jurassic Park would have been if it was just a big ass chicken that was with the eyeball. Like, they can't see you if they don't move. If you don't move, the fuck they can't. They just want a grape, a really big grape. That's all they want. Like, I don't know, dude. All of the records and the ability for us to leave our, you know, footprints, no pun intended, not necessarily in hindsight for the past, but like, and not even like legacy, not in like a me legacy sort of way, right? But like who are we going to be? And who are we allowing ourselves to be? And I don't actually have answers to those questions. But I think that's kind of the fun part of life, is that when you sometimes latch on to question, that life can become completely fulfilling because you find yourself engulfed and consumed by running at that question to figure out what the answer is. And you may never, but all along the way, you may be helping others on the wayside that you don't even know who the fuck they are. You know, hopefully we end up getting better where like the people that do that good actually get credited for doing that good. And it's not, you know what I mean? At least now with like the information age and stuff, there's, I guess, some traceability where accountability can come from like, no, you actually did steal that idea. That is not yours. You know, you didn't think of that first. What a rabbit hole.
No, man, it's been fantastic. I'm hearing your opinions and your stories. I feel like so many people are going to accept that it is okay to open up. And if anything today, you're an amazing photographer, but you're an even better dude. We didn't
even talk about photography then.
I know. That's what I was just about to say. I got a whole family behind me looking through the door wanting to start dinner. We're going to do a part 2 before I release this.
Okay.
And we're going to come in. I know who you are now. And you know what? You are a brother to me. We are on the same plane. We'll come back. This is all going up, man. This shit is fucking good. But we're going to come back. We'll talk a little more about photography.
Okay.
So people can see both sides of it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll schedule another day to finish off the photography aspect of it.
Okay.
But no, man.
We can try.
Yeah. No, dude, I look forward to it for sure. It's been eye-opening, and it's not often I feel that other people have been in the same shoes I've been in.
Yeah,
I've felt the same pain that I felt.
Likewise.
And I feel
100%.
it with you. And when I say you're a brother, I mean you're a brother. Like that shit's real. I wouldn't have expected it, honestly, that when I got on here today, I was like, dude, and I'm like, fucking hell, this guy knows me.
Yeah, it's not something that I take very lightly. Like I don't, kind of like you were saying earlier, I don't make friends easy.
Me either. I'm very guarded.
Like, I don't even think that it's guarded. It's just I have very clear boundaries that I'm 100% willing to exercise, And like, I'm not a babysitter. So like we're all adults. If I tell you no, I'm not going to do this, and you're like, well, but no actually means yes. It's like, huh, good luck with that. And you will never hear from me again.
100%.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not even explaining myself at that point. I told you no. Like, when did you, you know what I mean? So yeah, likewise, dude, like if you ever need anything, let me know. If you need it,
Will
just
do.
an ear to bend. I know that I did way too much talking, so I apologize.
Don't
But,
apologize, man. Because shit like that is all about what I'm actually about. Photography is second to creating positive mental health places. Allowing people to share a story, which may just lighten the load that they feel.
sure.
You know, you lost your friend, man. That dude sounds like a solid dude who I would have been privileged to meet. So, like, I feel everything that you're feeling right now. I can see it. I feel that, man. And I feel there's pain. I mean, you're doing good things by showing his daughter the camera, showing his daughter what her dad loved.
Mm-hmm.
That he took that path, he took the right path instead of the left path that showed him that made him feel like he wasn't good enough. When in reality, man, he had so much talent and so much people looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
But in dark times, people don't see those things.
Yes.
You know, I'll fire you my phone number, and
Yeah.
we'll keep in touch, because you're too much like a little brother to me to let you go anywhere now, man. It's so crazy. I love it. I'll even forgive you for, being a cannon shooter.
I'm not a cannon shooter.
I know, I'm just fucking with you.
I've shot all of the things, to be fair. Just to be 100% with you, I loved the Fuji stuff. I think it's rad. But man, dude, the GFX, like, because I had the original 100 that just, I called it the Hulk. I mean, the thing is like a B-52 bomber of, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just old and it's clunky. And like, I still don't understand why Fuji, even on the 2, hasn't updated their menu style past like an Atari. Like, yeah, like it bugs me so bad in my like neurospicy mind that the fonts are all different. Like, why is one bold? Why is that one like sans serif and that one's fucking Comic Sans and italic? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? I'm gonna miss that camera because I think, to be honest, a lot of the work that people are digging on, and I'm actually a little bit scared about this, to be honest. It was not an easy decision to let that camera go, and I took a massive loss on it. I bought it used, but trying to get out of the real estate industry, trying to get a job as a realtor that is leaving, everybody just kind of thinks real estate agents don't do shit. So it's just like, oh, you're good at doing nothing. That's cool. I'm just like fucking hucking my resume. Like, loser.
Yeah.
You go to my fucking Instagram. It's like, oh, he takes pictures. That's cool.
Yeah. Right.
I'm gonna miss that camera. It was, fuck the files. And I'm sure you saw that on your 50R, dude.
Yeah.
Like the fidelity of having like that full 16-bit color depth. Like,
And you'll miss the shutter sound. Click.
no, because I turned clarity off so it would actually like move. Because, dude, that was, it's like thinking, like, no, stop thinking about clarity. Like, fuck this. I'm putting a mist filter on. I'm done with this. I appreciate you, dude. A whole
I
lot.
appreciate you too,
I appreciate
man.
what you're doing for like everyone.
Thank you, sir. It's it takes a village, right? It's not just me. I was just the one who decided that I'd had enough and I needed to give a space for people to do this.
Let's see, that's important. That's baking bread for the hungry.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed our show, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content and the stories of our incredible guests. And remember to stay connected with us on all social media platforms. It's at LIFE_OF_PHYS or on the internet at www.lifeofphys.com. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day.